Hello and welcome to Hump Day Hangouts. This is episode number 556. Today is the 23rd of July, 2025. We are going to get into answering your local SEO questions after we do a couple of quick announcements and say hello to the guys. So first of all, I want to say hello to Chris. Chris, how you doing today?
Doing good. Busy in the lab as usual. Cooking something up. So I'm excited about the results that we will see soon. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Would it have anything to do with AI?
Probably.
Awesome. Bradley, how are you doing, man?
Well, good, man. Happy to be here. Busy as all hell too, but making progress. I've been working on an SOP for about 2 weeks now for the sales and fulfillment stuff for DHA, and I will likely have that done by Friday. So that's good because then we can launch phase two finally. And I'm really happy to get that going as well because that's the sales and fulfillment side. That's where the money is made. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to launching that as well. So we'll promote that a bit more once it's ready. That's for graduates at phase one, but it's a pretty powerful system that we got built for generating sales. I just did a sales call yesterday, a listing delivery call, which is the start of a sales conversation, and it went really well. I've even got a reply back from that contractor today about it, looking to schedule a follow up call already. So I'm pretty sure I closed him. I haven't closed him yet, but I'm pretty sure he's going to close. So we'll be sharing more information about that probably next week sometime.
Nice. Awesome. Let's see what is going on with me. I was gonna say, well, it's nice and toasty here. I went for a run. I was sweating my literal butt off today. I just like got done running. I'm like, man, I needed to go to the grocery store to pick something up, and my shorts were wet. Like I was just like they were dripping wet. I was like, well, I guess I'll stand outside and dry off. I bring that up because finally pulled the trigger. I'm going to run a 100 miler in October on the trails. And so I'll be sharing some information about that because I'm doing something fun with it. I'm going to be fundraising for the local trail community. Out here, there's a huge like 600 mile trail that runs through upstate New York, which is pretty cool. And Bradley, I know where you're at. You guys have some insane trail networks. Does the Appalachian Trail run anywhere near you, or is that far away? I don't.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked into that, but there are a lot of hiking trails around here.
Nice. Now I know in like the ATV stuff you get into, like
Yeah.
that's all the outdoor stuff is kind of nice when people share. Or it seems like, you get mountain bikers,
Yep.
ATVs, hikers, like you get all sorts of
Horse
groups.
riders. You get a lot
Yeah,
of people on horses around here. Yep.
cool deal. All right. Well, aside from that, we do want to mention a couple of things. One of those is next week you're going to be wanting to check your email. If you're not subscribed, head over to Semantic Mastery, hop on the email list. Twice a week we send out some really, really good information. Next week we're going to be sharing local ops with you. Bradley, do you mind maybe teasing a little bit, or just telling people why they might want to be keeping an eye out for the local ops launch starting on Monday?
Yeah, well, local ops is basically it's a local SEO schedule. It's the same exact process and sequence of tasks that I apply to all local SEO campaigns or local marketing campaigns. And I don't know why it took me so long to develop it. I'm still working on fleshing it out a little bit more, but we've had for years people ask like, what is the exact process and sequence that you use for everything? And so I finally put it all together, and it's basically we complete the process for a new client within about a month. Now, link building and content and stuff that's ongoing, so that's consistent. We keep that going nonstop, but pretty much the setup work is done within the first 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, really. And so the local SEO schedule or local ops, whatever it is that we're calling it, is basically just that my process that I've systematized, right? And it's the same process that and the sequence of tasks that we apply to every campaign with the timelines in which we apply them. And so the reason why I think that's valuable is because we're going to be providing as part of the local ops training. It's a combination of training, SOPs, and done for you services, meaning you have the option if you decide to purchase our product of whether or not you want to execute those fulfillment tasks on your own or outsource it through your own team by delegating work and providing them with SOPs, which we will provide you. Or we're going to give you the option to use done for you services, many of which are done by my team through our white label agencies, but also some that are done through vendors that we work closely with. And so we're giving you the schedule and the sequence of tasks with the timelines and everything else of the system that the systemized process that I had created for my own local SEO agency and been very successful applying those tasks in that sequence for years now. And so you're getting access to it, the training, as well as done for you service options if you decide you want other people to do it for you, so that you have a repeatable process that will basically allow you to have some predictability in your business, right? You'll know with consistency that you can produce results consistently, because it's always the same series of tasks added, applied to a campaign, and it's consistent that way. Here's the thing: how many times have you had different campaigns that you worked on? Anybody that's listening, and you do a little bit of this on this campaign, and a little bit of something else on another campaign, and a little bit of something else on another campaign, and you have these mixed results, and you don't know what is what and what to produce the results, or what recipe of items or tasks created this result versus another result. All that, it's very difficult. So having a systemized process really will give you confidence in knowing that your deliverables are going to be consistent. It's likely going to produce consistently good results, and it makes it much easier to scale your organization, your operations. So that's what that is for. It really is the same process that I use for all clients, in the exact sequence and order in which I apply those tasks. And it's it's a great way to scale your agency, I promise. So
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and then pay attention next week, because if you are interested in that semantic mastery, subscribers are going to be getting a hell of a deal. So it's going to be available at a great discounted price for the first 5 days. So make sure that you're, like I said, on the email list. Otherwise, tune in to Hump Day Hangouts. Those will kind of be your two options to really find out about that and get a chance to grab a good deal on some fantastic training. So I think that's it, guys. Anything else we need to touch base on?
well, we have some white label services too. We're going to be
Right. Thank you.
offering. Yeah, we're going to be. We talked about this last week. We have some white label services. I don't know, Adam, if you want to drop the link to the Google
Sure
Doc
thing.
for now, but we're opening up. We're actually looking to bring on some new white label partners for some of the DHA services that we're offering, which are the front end services that we pitched as part of the directory hybrid agency program. So I'm trying to build my team up a little bit more, my fulfillment team, for providing or executing or fulfilling those services. And so we're trying to get some people to come or place some orders. And the reason for that is because, as I mentioned at the top of this, or the beginning of this Hump Day Hangout, is very close to having the SOP and training done, prepared for the phase 2 of DHA, which is sales and fulfillment. And so once that's done, then we're going to open up or launch phase 2, which is for graduates of phase 1. And so all the graduates from the previous groups that went through the phase 1 program, whoever's interested can come join. And I expect that we will start getting a lot more orders coming in from DHA program members that are using our white label services, which is what I want people to do while they're dialing in their sales process, their offers, presentation, and their sales process, their pitch. Dial that shit in by booking more and more sales calls, as many sales calls as you can possibly book. That's what you want to do, because that's the quickest way you're going to figure out how to best sell those services to whatever industry you've selected. And so instead of selling a couple, like closing a couple and then stopping all sales calls because now you're in freak out mode that you have to fulfill on what it is that you sold, and you go into fulfillment mode, instead of doing that to where it's constantly up and down and you never make any progress, I want people focusing in on selling, selling, selling. That way they can get, or, having conversations is really what I want you focusing on, which will lead to sales. Okay. And so once you start selling and you start figuring out through those conversations what is compelling, what gets them to take action, what converts, that sort of stuff, then you can start to bring the fulfillment in-house once you've dialed in that sales process, if you want to. Here's the thing: if you've got a white label service provider that can fulfill what you sell in a good, and it's consistent and it works well for the client, why would you want to add the complexity of building your own in-house team? Certainly you can increase your profitability that way, there's no question, but you also increase your stress levels and the complexity of your business, right? So I'm just stating, I want people using our white label services that don't already have their own internally developed services. use our services while they focus in on kind of dialing in their sales process, their offer, their pitch, all of that. And then if at the end of, once you've got that kind of figured out and it's converting consistently well, then if you want to bring the fulfillment in-house, we have all the SOPs available for that. So we can give it to you. So anyway, the whole point of this was the white label services is we're trying to bring more clients in, and I need to get some orders in to stress test our current team and find out where there are weaknesses and things that need to be kind of shored up a bit, so to speak. So if anybody's interested, there's a white label document that shows the pricing, our pricing, and what we suggest is recommended retail pricing. If you have any questions about anything, guys, reach out to me. I'm happy to send you a link to my calendar. You can schedule a 15-minute call. We can jump on a call and chat, see if it's a good fit. I'm looking to get some of our audience into our white label services so I can further develop them, train more personnel, etc. Okay, so check it out. Just let us know if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Bradley.
All right, guys, let's get into questions. Not too many today, so that's good. We can always wrap up early if needed. If anybody's in chat or attending live that has any questions or comments, you're free to post. We could probably get to them today. If not, we'll wrap up early. All right. So the first question was Huzaifa. He says, how long should we wait before building a link to a newly bought domain? Don't wait at all. The velocity with which you build links, I recommend you're careful with. You just be conservative. Not necessarily careful, just be conservative and don't be too aggressive with link building to a new domain, but you don't have to wait. I mean, it's not like, look, here's the thing. One of the things I recommend is a press release right after you launch a new site, right? Because that's normal. That's typical. Businesses do that all the time. They're announcing the formation of a new business, right? So press releases are great. Now, I typically don't recommend linking to a money site with a press release, but it could be done as long as you're using a brand anchor. I would recommend instead, if you have your branded assets set up for a newly bought domain for a new project, if it's a local business, right? So you'd have a GBP, an ID page. You should, if it's got a business location, it should have an ID page. And then you can use the press release to promote the Google Business Profile and the ID page instead of linking directly to the money site, right? The GBP and the ID page are linking to the money site. And then you use the press release to branded anchors, right? Branded anchors to the ID page, and in brand plus Google Business category as the anchor for the GBP that you're linking to, right? And then because what that does is now you're building a fairly high volume of links because of the press releases quickly, but with brand anchors, which is critical, linking back to 2 out of 3 of the components that make up the local entity, right? I always talk about what I consider to be the 3 components that make up the local entity. There's the organic side, which is the self-hosted site. Then there's the Google Maps side, which is the Google Business Profile. And then there's the ID page, which is the bridge or the connector that kind of connects them together, right? The GB website used to do that. Guys, remember the Google Business website was the one-page site that you could build in the Google Business Profile, right? It was on whatever subdomain you would create it, and then .business.site. Okay, you guys remember that? Many of you should, I would imagine. Google retired those in March of last year. And we used the hell out of those for, maybe it was 2 years ago. Anyways, whenever Google retired them, I think it was March of last year. But anyway, we used those for a long time because that was that third entity component. Let me provide a visual aid to go with this. Give me 1 second. That's this here. All right. So this is what I'm saying. Before, when there was a Google Business website available, I used to say that was the bridge or the connector that connected, it joined the 2 sides, organic and maps. And I say that with certainty because it was an organic asset, right? It was a web page that could only rank in organic search, right? Because it was a web page that you would build as part of the Google Business Profile. So you were building an organic, a web page through the Google Maps profile, the Google Business Profile, that would rank in organic or could rank in organic search. It wouldn't be given an impression in map search because it's not the map, it's not the profile. Now you could link to the Google Business website as like the appointment URL, for example, in the GBP, and then it would be part of the GBP when the GBP would rank in map search. But it wasn't the website that was ranking, right? It was in map search, GBPs is what is ranking. It's the Google Business Profile. Local Finder, now there's Local Finder and Universal Search or Google Search. That shows websites ranking that are associated with Google business profiles. In other words, you can't rank in Local Finder without a website attached to the GBP, because what Local Finder shows is the websites ranking that are linked to, associated with GBPs. So it's influenced by map search, but it's actually not map search. Map search shows Google business profiles ranking, not websites. You can rank a Google business profile without a website attached in map search, but not a Local Finder. Hopefully you understand the difference. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because the Google business profile was an organic asset that you built as, excuse me, the Google business website was an organic asset that you built as part of the GB Maps profile, right? And so, and if it was a storefront business or a business with a published street address, whether it was storefront or not, it didn't matter. If it had a published street address, then the map would kind of show up at the bottom of the GB website. It wasn't the same as a Google map, a Google business profile embedded map, but it was a map that showed where the location was, right? And so that's why I always said that that was the bridge. It was a connector because it was an organic asset that you built as part of the Google business profile. And that was Google's way of connecting everything, right? And then Google retired that. And shortly thereafter, Local Finder came out, right? And Local Finder is what I was just describing a moment ago. That's the map pack that shows up in universal search results. It's not the same as maps. That's why there's an icon that shows up in that maps pack that says open in maps. When you open in maps, the results are often different. Seriously, like you'll see discrepancies and differences between map search and Local Finder search. And that's because of what I just described. So the ID page becomes a perfect opportunity to replace what the Google business website used to do, because an ID page is a connector. The way that we build them is we are then using a semantic triple statement, right, or entity association statement in the SEO title, and we are embedding all of the primary assets: money site, press advantage organization page, batch geo map, Google business profile map itself is being embedded. We reference NAP, name, address, phone number, website, links to the product or service pages, links to the supporting location pages if that's relevant to the campaign. And then we also take all of the supporting page URLs that we can find and then consolidate them into a Google sheet, all the supporting page URLs that have accurate information published about that business location. We consolidate all of them into a Google sheet, then publish the Google sheet with those URLs that are hyperlinked with keywords relevant to that business and put that in the ID page. So the ID page becomes now a critical entity component. That's the difference between, like, I like to recommend what, like I said, these are the three components now. When there was a Google business website, there were four, because it was the three components. This used to have a GB website right here, not ID page. And then the ID page became the fourth component. But when Google acquired the GB websites, that became a perfect opportunity to use the ID page as the substitute, because it is precisely that. It is a connector. It ties all of this stuff together, is what I'm saying. All right, so it's the perfect place when you are launching a new site or a new project. If it's a local campaign, get a domain, verified Google business profile, and then an ID page should be one of the very first things created in addition to the money site and the verification of the GB profile, right? And so once you have the ID page, now that's the perfect opportunity to announce it via press release, because then you can link to the ID page and you can link to the Google map or to the knowledge panel for the brand. Let me give you an example. Let's just, let's pull something up here. Let's look for, I don't know, just pick plumber in Pikeville, Kentucky. I was looking for one 2 weeks ago. Had a hell of a time, so I don't know how good this is going to work. This guy's retired, so I don't know why this keeps coming up. I know he's retired because I called his ass and he told me he was retired. But you see how that says right there, plumber in Pike County, Kentucky, right? So that, what I like to do as far as, like I mentioned, linking directly to the Google Map profile. When I say that, I would, like, if I were to open this up, this guy, like I said, this guy's retired. It should be marked as permanently closed. But anyways, the share URL is what I would link to for the Google Business Map. But you can also, and I've recently started testing with press releases on this, which is when you link to this. So that share URL there takes them to this knowledge panel. Now, I don't like to link to this though, unless the brand search is really well, populated fully populated on page one with page URLs that are specifically referencing that company. So let me give you a quick example of what I mean. If we go search for GL Plumber in Pikeville. Okay, this is what I mean. So this is a brand search right here. You guys see with a location modifier, but it's still a brand search. And I would want to see every single listing on page one referencing this particular company if I was going to link to this knowledge panel URL, right? It popped a knowledge panel before, but it was a generic search query. So that's why it was showing a lot of other competitors on page one. In this case, if we go visit this URL, you can see that this is a knowledge panel URL for a brand search, and it appears that all of the page URLs on these search results page here are specifically referencing this company. So to get back to the question, I would publish a press release, link to the ID page with a brand anchor, and then I would link to either the map share URL for the Google Business Profile, like what you see here, right? Or I would link to the knowledge panel URL for a brand search if the full first page is populated with supporting assets referencing that particular location. If it's a new campaign, though, that's likely not going to be the case. So I would be linking to this to start with, if that makes sense, right? And then you can always come back at a later time once you've done brand builder or branded assets and you've optimized your schema, your same as attributes, the ID page, and then you start linking out with Google Posts to those branded and supporting assets, which is how you get this brand search to populate with assets specifically referencing that location, right? You reinforce that data. You spoon feed that data back to Google via linking to them with Google Business Posts from that GBP, referencing them in the ID page, which the ID page will be designated as the dedicated ID page in the @ID field of the local business schema, and then also referencing them in the same as attributes of the local business schema inserted on the money site. Does that make sense? So a press release is one of the best things you can do for a new site, in my opinion. Okay. You don't have to wait. You just got to be careful about how quickly you build links to that specific domain. That's what you got to be careful about. And if you do it the way that I just described, it's I've never had a problem with it ever in like 10 years, and I've been doing the ID page strategy for 6 years. So, all right, Bob's up next. He says, I have a website that's ranking well in local SEO, and one of my clients wants to use their site to rank in that same area. What's the best way to pass authority? Should I just link from my ranking site to theirs, or is there a better method? I mean, yeah, you can do that, but if there's some sort of, you might want to find, like, if there's some way that they could publish like a blog post instead, like that would, here's the thing, branded content is fabulous right now, guys. It really works well. So like if you have a website that's ranking well in local SEO and one of your clients wants to use their site to rank in that same area, what's the best way to pass authority? If you could publish a post on the site that you want to push authority from over to whatever the target is, if you could publish a post where somehow you're mentioning the brand and whether you're thanking them for some sort of business engagement that went well, or support for whatever. So let me kind of back up. One of the things that we do is we build geographic links, it's semantic links. So we go out and we hunt down expired domains that have backlink profiles from local sources in whatever areas it is that we need. We find expired domains and we look that have the city or town name in the domain, or the county or an adjacent city or town name in the domain, or again, the county or a larger metropolitan region name in the domain. We always start with the city or town first, immediately adjacent cities or towns, then we go to county, then we go to region. Okay, once we get past region, it gets a little bit too broad. But what I'm getting at here is when we find these domains that we use for geographic links, they are typically not topically relevant to what it is that we're going to be linking to. We're trying to pass geographic link equity from the referring domain source, the domain that we're going to find, purchase, repopulate, and then use to pass geographic link equity to our target. But it's likely not very rarely is it topically relevant to what we're going to be linking to. So how do we do it? Well, what we do is we just take a random post from the site that we build on the domain that we've purchased, repopulated with content in the same topical category of whatever it was previously. That's what makes the backlinks from the local sources remain valid, because they were linking to a site about whatever the topic was. And we keep that topic intact when we repopulate the domain with new content. It's all about the same topic, whatever that topic was. That way, the backlinks from those local sources are going to remain valid because they're relevant to what they are linking to. Does that make sense? And then what we do is we just take any one of the random posts on that site and we will insert a block quote that says, and it's just a blurb that we use. We have an AI write it, so it's different every time. But it says like in a the essence of what it says is the team at our blog would like to thank company name for their support. If you need products or services in city or town, contact this company. And then it, NAP, so name, address, phone number. Basically, we get a citation out of that block quote insertion, as well as we do a Google Map embed. So we get our 2 anchor text links that I was showing you here, right? So we get our 2 anchor text links, one to the money site, one to the ID page within that blurb that says the team at our blog would like to thank company name for their support. If you need products or services in city or town, contact this company. We get 2 anchor text links and a map embed plus a citation, an NAP mention, right? And so it works really, really well. And that's what I would do. So because that's a blurb that is just inserted into some random post on the site that is likely not relevant to what it's linking to. But what we're trying to push is geographic link equity from the source to the target. And we do that through that blurb, that block quote that is like its own container within the post body. Do you understand? That's what a block quote is. It's a separate container within the post body that is referencing an external source or whatever. Typically use block quote when you're going to be like, curating content, right? Referencing content from another source. And so it's like a little container within the content body of the post. And so then all of the content within that container is branded content now for the company that we're linking to. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's what I would do, Bob, is something like that is either have a blog post that already exists on your site that you're going to be pushing link equity from to the target and just insert a block quote with something like what I just mentioned, or publish a separate, if possible, and you can have if there's some sort of relationship between the target, the source and the target, if you can create a new post that would specifically, talk about that relationship or whatever, like how do they associate those two brands, those two businesses, that is going to perform better. But if you would have to force that, which is why we don't try to force that anymore. We did for the first couple of months that we did geographic links, and it was very difficult to make anything seem like it was relevant or made sense. So when I kind of developed that block quote process and started testing it and it worked, and I said, well, that's all we need to do. Because again, it's like you're inserting a block of branded content in another post. So we're still able to push geographic link equity from the source over to the target without it being kind of seeming out of place or forced, if that makes sense. So that's what I would do. Okay. Just link to it, but do it in a way that where you can try to promote the brand that you're linking to in a way, because it performs better through my testing recently is, again, everything about brand is really, really moving the needle right now. So hopefully that was clear, Bob. Next question is from Hoosie. He said, would you recommend we use Page Optimize Pro to write copy for content pages since they use Google's NLP to determine suggested keywords? Sure. I mean, I don't think those are necessary for location pages, but for product or service pages, sure, you can do that. I don't do that. I like the Content Maxima tool. That's my favorite tool now for developing content, as well as for because it's not a keyword tool. It is a marketing tool. It is a marketing tool. And there are two kind of keyword components to it. That's these first two tools here. But the rest of them are all marketing tools that take the data from these two and turn it into specific marketing messages, copy, etc., for specific buyer personas at specific stages of the sales cycle that they could be in, right? So I like to use this, and this, I don't care about the NLP analysis so much as I do as what this tool does is it shows how our entities related to each other based upon distance graph, which is, essentially like how there's the seed term and then there's immediately adjacent terms or entities that are related, like immediately adjacent, meaning like they're directly related to the seed term. And then there's tier two entities. Tier two entities are those immediately adjacent to the tier one entities, but 2 hops away from the seed term. Does that make sense? And so if you understand, and that's what this tool does, this tool actually queries 63 of the language models or whatever that kind of analyze that all of the major language models use, like this, they've identified, the developers of this app identified 63 of them that are used the most consistently by all the different, you know, major platforms out there, social media, search, all those types of things. And so it shows you the frequency with which the keywords or related terms occurred in the 63 language models so that you can select those that had the highest frequency of occurrence because those are the algorithm trigger words, if that makes sense. And so now we're optimizing for how the language models understand our language, right? Which is going to trigger them serving our content up over others that don't have this sort of analysis, if that makes sense. Let me show you an example of this. I did want to show you an example. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to show you some of these here for like tree service, for example. I just showed this on a call, or I did the state of local SEO insights video series last week, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, before the Content Maximum webinar. And I showed some of this, but this is the matrix. This is what I want to show you. This is the matrix tool, which is the tool where it shows what I just described. So in this case, I put in the search query tree service. That's the term or the seed term. Okay, let me zoom in on this a little bit, guys. So you'll see the seed term here is tree service. And this is showing there's 63 other columns besides this one. And that's what this is. This is showing the top 25 related search terms to that seed term that is 1 hop away based upon distance graph, meaning these are immediately adjacent according to the language models. And so there's 63 language models here that show the top 25 related search terms to that seed term. Does that make sense? But this is the way to very quickly to determine what is the ones that you should be using. I mean, it's kind of cool to look at this data, but this just consolidates all of that. And it says out of 63 language models, 62 of them have tree trimming and tree removal as immediately adjacent to tree service, right? So that means, again, and that's normal. The tree service is the service category. The services that fall within that service category are tree trimming, tree removal, stump grinding, tree care, things like that. And so you can see that, right? Tree planting, tree risk assessment, stump grinding, 60 times out of 63, right? Then you can see the tree pruning, tree fertilization, etc. You get down here, these are other search queries that are related to the seed term, but aren't shown nearly as frequently across those other 63 language models. So the kind of rule of thumb based upon what the developers suggest is anything above 10 out of 63 language models as a common related search query should be used as an algorithm trigger word, as it shows right there. Does that make sense? And so I like to sprinkle these in. Now, to get back to this, guys, Content Maximum, if Adam or Chris, if either one of you are on still, if the offer is still available, we should post the link because this is an outstanding tool, guys. I really, really like this tool. Like it's amazing and it's quick. And so let me show you one other thing very quickly, which is this. So this is the analysis. And the analysis basically that you're supposed to actually run this one first. I tend to run the matrix a lot as my first starting point, but this shows the seed term, and then you set how many primary nodes, so tier one related terms, do you want to pull back? And then then you can set the number of tier two related terms to each of the tier one related terms. And so this shows nodes and edges. And this is showing essentially the search term. The primary nodes are going to be the number or the search queries that are most closely related to that seed term. Secondary nodes are those that are most closely related to the tier one term. So the blueprint here shows you kind of a breakdown of that. And it shows that tree removal is a primary node of tree service. And here are 5 terms, because that's how I'd set it. I set it, I think, to 15 tier one terms and 5 tier two terms. So this brought back 90 terms, the seed term, and then 15 tier one, 75 tier two. Do you understand? And so that's what we're looking at here is 15 tier one terms, 75 tier two terms, and these are tier two terms that are most closely related to the tier one term, if that's clear. And so this can get, of course there's some overlap because these are all all services that fall under this service category. So think about Wikipedia, guys, internal linking from Wikipedia, right? Part of the reason Wikipedia became such a powerhouse in Google is because of their internal linking structure. No kidding. And so this is kind of shows you that under the tree service category, you can have all this internal linking between specific service pages when they are related because the distance graph supports it. That's how, in other words, it's not years ago before the algorithm had language models, right? With silo structure or silo architecture within a site, we get very, very tight with our silo structures to where, we didn't like to cross link between silos because you could bleed the theme of the silo, the thematic relevance of the silo. Does that make sense? So we used to get really, really tight with our silos. And I used to think, again, before like semantics and, entity-based optimization and stuff came onto the scene, or before I understood it anyways, I used to think that tree removal was a silo. Tree trimming was a silo. Stump grinding or stump removal was a silo. It's not, because those are all services that fall under one service category. The silo would be tree service. Or tree care. These would be services or supporting services that fall underneath that service category. So what I'm saying is I used to treat tree service as like just the general keyword, and then I would have a separate silo and category for tree removal, and then one for tree trimming, and one for tree care, one for stump grinding. That wasn't necessary, right? Because they all fall under one service category, which would be one silo. So because they all fall under the same service category, you can interlink between those services, and it's not going to bleed the theme like I thought it did maybe years ago when it was a keyword-based algorithm, it did. In fact, I know it did because we did a lot of testing, and that's why we made everything so tight. But once Google became an entity-based algorithm to where it understands language at a much better, deeper level, then it was unnecessary to do that. And that's why, again, if you go take a look at any of my, I'll just use one of my public sites, but any one of the kind of sites where I show my, for example, if we go to the tree removal page, you can see that I'm linking to the other services from that page. That's internal linking. This data right here is telling us that we can do that. I was doing that before this was ever available to me because through testing, I figured it out. But what I'm saying is this tells me very specifically that is why this performs well, because we're internally linking like Wikipedia. That's why on every one of my service pages, it's linking to the other services because they all fall under the tree service category, one silo. You get it? And so that's why I'm saying, like, to get back to Huzaifa's question, I think it was about this, which is, would you recommend using, on our Page Optimizer Pro? Sure. The thing is, I don't like a lot of those apps like Surfer SEO, Page Optimizer Pro and stuff, because a lot of those apps are going to scan the top, 20 results or whatever, and they're going to average out all the data and tell you that if you want to perform better, you just have to exceed those averages. But I think that's like, a dog chasing its tail, because it's a lot of those pages that are ranking are still way over optimized. And so it's telling you by averaging out the data of typically over optimized pages that you need to optimize even further in order to compete. And so I stopped using all of those tools, guys. I don't like those tools anymore because of that. I find it better to just kind of figure it out either through trial and error, which I know that's not feasible for a lot of people working in multiple industries. I work in one industry, so I was willing to put in the time and effort to figure it out. But this kind of a tool here, I think, is much better because, guys, it's not word count. I talked about this last week. What is the answer? What has been the answer in the SEO world for years whenever something isn't performing as well? It's either more content or more links, right? Either throw more words on the page or build more links to it, or both. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it's about proper structure and proper internal linking. And then also, and it's not about the number of words on a page anymore. I don't believe that at all. And that's, again, I know that because I've done a lot of testing with location pages that have no content other than the headings and subheadings. That's it. And they still rank. And so if it was about content, then how come I can rank a page with 200 words or 150 words over top of a page that has 1,500 or 2,000 words? Right? It's because it's not the content. Now, for product or service pages, maybe, but that's not service pages in a local business setting aren't what you're trying to rank. You're trying to rank the location pages. So that's why I don't like to use any of those kind of tools, guys, because I think it's easy to over optimize. And I don't like that. I prefer to just kind of, test it on my own, but this type of a tool here, Content Maxima, can very quickly help you determine what are the most related algorithm trigger words. And the analysis tool can help you to develop the content structure, and it can help you to develop the internal linking within that content structure. Do you understand? And that's all going to help you to perform a lot better. And for that, we don't need to scrape the top 20 results and average out all that data. We just need to know what is the appropriate data to be referencing within the content of those pages, and how should we be linking them together to create the associations that mirrors what the language models already understand about those associations. That's what we're doing, right? We're just reinforcing what the language models already understand about it. That's why this sort of a tool is so much more valuable, in my opinion, than those kind of tools that you're talking about, which were older kind of technologies for when Google was a keyword-based algorithm. Think about it. I'm not saying that they haven't improved or how the tools operate and everything. I just don't like to use them anymore because of all the reasons I just described. Okay. Check out Content Maxima, guys. It's fabulous, in my opinion. I only showed you guys the keyword side of things, but when you get in the marketing side, that's where I think the true value of that tool is not from the keyword or entity research. It's for how to use that research in a proper way for specific buyer personas at specific stages in the sales cycle. That's why I think it's a powerful tool. So check it out. Let's see. Who else is here? Let's see. Brian says, you know what? Let me finish these other questions. I'll come back to the comments, guys. So next question was, Chris says, can a GBP rank in maps for different variations of queries, such as landscaping near me, hardscaping near me, etc., or should we only optimize the location landing page for the landscaping plus city and near me modifier and use the service pages to target organic rankings for those additional specific service queries? No, it's going to be the location pages, Chris. Always. Always. I promise you. That's why you optimize the location pages for the location, because anybody that is in or near that location, when they search for the term or the term near me, that location page, based upon where Google knows that that searcher is located at the time they perform the search, Google is going to select the most relevant page on the site to serve up in the search results. Okay. And so if you optimize for top level service categories or topic terms, right, which is what I've been teaching this for over 2 years now, guys, category and topic optimization. Optimizing for Google business categories to perform better in maps search, and optimizing for topics, entities, to perform better in organic search. You optimize a location page for both the Google business category and the top level topic, right? The associated entity within whatever that is, right? So if you so usually the SEO title is going to be optimized for one, and the H1 is going to be optimized for the other. So if you put the Google business category in the SEO title, then you put the topic term in the H1, or vice versa. The topic term goes in the H1, the Google business category goes, or excuse me, the SEO title. Then the GB category goes into the H1. And what I'm getting at here is then it's lead with the brand on location pages. That's the SEO title should be brand first, Google business category or topic term, depending on what is most appropriate. And then the location. So a location is going to be city, comma, state, right? That's what it should be. But in some cases, just city. Like, go look at Wikipedia. Las Vegas is just Las Vegas. You don't have to have Nevada. You can put it there, but it doesn't have to be. But I always typically am going to use the official entity, location entity name, however it is referenced in Wikipedia, which is typically going to be city, comma, state spelled out. That's how I like to reference it in the SEO title. Okay. And then you can restate the entities in the H1, but you can omit the brand at that point because the brand is established in the SEO title, and because that content is the location page is published onto the branded domain. The domain doesn't have to be the brand name. It could be an exact match domain, but it's a domain associated with the brand. So I call that the branded domain. Do you get what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is location pages should be brand first, Google business category or top level topic term, whichever is most appropriate, because you're going to use both of them anyways. Again, SEO title H1. So they're both going to get used. Just which order you put them in is there's a number of variables that can determine what is most appropriate for that. But anyways, you're going to have brand, Google business category or topic term, and then city, comma, state. Okay. That is the page that will be served in the search results for a query for the product or service plus near me, or product or service plus the location modifier. It's going to be the location page that shows up in the search results, right? If you've got a location page that is competing with a service page because you also squeezed location modifiers into the service page, which I still see SEOs doing all the time, which is improper. It's competing pages. Guys, I'm seeing this left and right now. When I'm doing competitive link analysis report reviews or full SEO audit reviews, I go in and I rerun all the Bright Local reports. And I always do a combination of the general product or service keyword, that plus near me, that plus the GBP location, so that wherever the GBP is physically located, that city name. And then typically the client submits, multiple other cities that they want to rank for. And so we'll add usually just the immediately adjacent cities to that kind of rank tracking report too, because once you get more than one city away, like so something that's no longer immediately adjacent in map search, ranking is going to tank. Anytime you try to do a search for a search query with a location modifier for a city that's more than 2 cities away, meaning it's not immediately adjacent, it's going to perform terribly in map search because the search query is asking Google to return businesses that provide that service that are physically located in that city that was added as the modifier, the search modifier. See what I'm saying? It's not saying return businesses, Google, that provide services in this area. That's not what the query is asking Google to do. The query is asking Google to return businesses that provide those products or services that are physically located in that area, right? So that's why map search, I see SEOs all the time that will submit on their client's behalf, right? Because it's SEOs submitting their clients' campaigns to me to analyze. And I see all the time where they'll submit, the keyword plus a city modifier, but they're 2 or 3 cities away from that city modifier because they're in a suburb. The company's in a suburb, but they want to target the main metro area. And I tell them, like, I don't know what you told your client, but if you told them that you could get them to rank in Google Maps for this city over here, like, it's not going to happen. Like, so, and I'm very clear about this when I'm doing the analysis. I tell everybody right up front, like, look, you can rank an organic search for that query, but in map search, you're never going to get in the top 3, right? For that query because the business isn't located there. Google's not, even if you could brute force your way into the top 3, it won't last because at every opportunity Google has to push that back out of the 3-pack and return businesses that are physically located in that area that has been queried, that was the modifier in the search query, Google's going to return those. So, it's futile to even try is what I'm saying. You can rank organically for those terms, and usually you can rank really well for the city that the business is located in. I'm not talking about with the city modifier because that's why it would rank well, because you add the city modifier for where Google knows the business is located. But for the general query, the query plus near me, or the query plus city modifiers for immediately adjacent cities, you can rank well in map search for that if all the optimization is done properly, right? But as soon as you get more than 2 cities away, kind of like what we were talking about with these, right? 1 hop and 2 hops, right? When you get 2 hops or further away from the seed location, it's no longer going to perform well in map search. And so it's kind of futile. So to get back to what I was saying about this, I see all the time that there are SEOs that are still squeezing, keywords, location modifiers, into the service pages when they are trying to target multiple locations from the site. So they have location pages on the site, and then they have service pages on the site with one of the locations referenced in the service page. And I always question, why would you do that? Because isn't that service available to all locations? So why would you have a location modifier in the service SEO title? It doesn't make any sense, right? That service should be available to all the locations that have location pages on the site. So that service should be location neutral. It should be available to all locations. So why would you? So the reason why I bring that up is because I see the competing pages all the time, where there's more than one page ranking from the same domain. When I say ranking, I didn't say ranking on page 1. Sometimes there's more than one page on page 1, but most of the time we'll see like a page 1 ranking and then a page 2 or 3 ranking. So 2 pages are ranking for the same search query, one on page 1 and the other one on page 2, 3, whatever it is. And then I go look at the page URLs, and the reason why is because, again, they're competing. There are 2 pages on the site or more that are optimized for similar search terms, locations, etc. And so Google doesn't know which is the best one to rank because it doesn't know which is the most appropriate, the most relevant. So it just ranks both of them. And if you had only had one page ranking for or optimized relevant for that search query, then that one page would have been performing in a higher position. That makes sense. So I always tell clients when I'm doing these analyses, like, listen, you've got competing page issues occurring, and here's the data to prove it. And I show it and I talk through it and explain to them how and so that they're aware of, like, indeed, I can prove it to them with the rank reports. This is what's occurring, competing pages. And here's why. Here's why these two pages are competing. If you were to only opt to rework the site, modify the on-page optimization to where you'd eliminate the competing pages, then the one page that should be ranking for that query would likely perform in a much better position, right? The only time I would sometimes don't recommend that, and I always tell them very clear about this, I say, look, if you got two pages ranking in the top 10 for a particular query, you may want to leave it because you're taking up two spots on page one instead of one. But the problem is it's likely not going to last for long. It may last for a few weeks, few months even. But eventually that is likely going to end up becoming a competing page issue as well. And so that's why I recommend typically just consolidating pages or retitling pages to where they're no longer competing. And then that way, the one page that should be most relevant for the query is the one page that Google will serve in the results will likely be in a much better position than when Google is unsure and it serves more than one page from the same domain, but all of them lower in the search results than it would have been had there only been one, if that makes sense. All right. So to answer the question, do you need to have the service pages should be optimized to be location neutral, meaning the SEO title should not reference location modifiers. Now, in the H1 of the service pages, you can reference the location region, county, metropolitan area, whatever, that all of the supporting locations that the company wants to serve fall within. Like, in other words, again, you could find an overall county. Like I just mentioned Pikeville, Kentucky is the example that I was looking at a minute ago when we were looking at the plumbing thing. Pikeville is a city in Pike County, Kentucky, right? So if I were going to be optimizing a website for Pike County, for service area business in Pikeville that would serve multiple cities within the county of Pike County, then I would optimize the service pages for service plus brand in the SEO title. And then in the H1, I would say this service using an entity variant, whatever that is, in, or tree removal services in Pike County, Kentucky, because now any of the supporting location pages that I'm going to reference within that content body of the service page is going to be locations that are within that Pike County area, region. Does that make sense? So again, it's not the location, or excuse me, service pages that you will rank for those types of terms. It will be location pages. All right. It's a good question. Last one is James, and then we can wrap up. I got a couple of comments that I will address as well. James says, I prefer building in GHL or Go High Level over WordPress. It's way easier to work with. I 100% agree. The only downside, as I've noticed, is the page load speed. Has that affected the SEO performance of any of your sites? Maybe, but it's not bad. If you not enough for me to go back to WordPress, I'll tell you that. Has it affected it? Yeah, I'm sure it does to a degree, but there are things that you can do to speed it up, like turn on lazy loading, resize your images before uploading them to make sure they're the correct dimensions for how they should be displayed, so they're not larger and all that stuff. You can do all those things. You can host the images externally if you wanted. I do a lot of that with these types of sites. All of these images here are externally hosted images. You can see they're, sorry, I meant to hit open image in new tab right there. So you'll see those are all on Amazon S3. So I host my images externally, but there's a number of things that you can do with high level sites to improve the page speed. But does it affect the performance of the site? Yeah, probably. WordPress sites can be optimized typically to load faster. Part of the reason GHL sites don't load as quickly is because there's so much bloated code because they're page builders. Page builders tend to bloat the code a bit. Some of them, the more newer kind of versions of page builders are a lot more lean than they used to be, but a lot of them are quite bloated, and high level is quite bloated. The code is very bloated. But again, that little bit of loss that I get from the page loads, page speed being a little bit slow, is not enough to get me to go back to all the other nightmares that WordPress presents. You know what I mean? WordPress is a freaking nightmare, guys. I can't stand it. I hate WordPress. I really, honest to God, I don't want to build anything else in WordPress at all. I just had a podcast domain set up because I've got an automated podcast that we're working on. I had Derek Pierce. Um, I hired Derek Pierce to build it for me. And anyways, you can see a couple of these podcasts that were like, he was just 2 days ago was testing some more of these. This was the first one that, and then I had I set up a WordPress site for this. This is going to be the site that hosts my podcast, the automated podcast, AI generated podcast. But I put in WordPress on this site, and I haven't built in WordPress in so long that I don't even know how to edit this damn site. I honest to God don't. So I contacted my developer that does the site builds for Semantic Links, my link building service, and they're in India. And I contacted him. I said, look, I need a WordPress site skinned and themed and all of that, and I don't have the time to do it. Number one, number two. So I sent it to him. I sent him the login details for the WordPress site and said, can you make this look good for a podcast? That's all I did. I had no further instruction. Just make this look good for a podcast. And so he put this theme on here, skinned it and everything. And then he said, okay, it's done. You can go in and customize it. I logged in and I have no idea how to customize WordPress sites anymore, guys. Like, I have no idea how to do it. It's not like it's nothing like it used to be. Like, so anyways, I over the next couple of days, I'm going to send him a message and just be like, look, I need you to take care of all the customization of the site. I'll pay you to do it. I don't even want to mess with it. Screw WordPress, man. Every time you log into WordPress, you have updates, and I'm just tired of it. They keep changing stuff. I don't want to work with it anymore. So anyway. All right, guys, we're done. Let's answer a couple of comments and then we'll wrap up right on time today too, which is rare. Costco, what's up, man? He says, do you tier your high DA branded entity assets, citations, press release, or any other assets with auto-generated link software like MoneyRobot or SEO Neo? No, not anymore. Not branded assets. I don't recommend doing that to branded assets. I consider branded assets. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. You can do that. I don't recommend it. If you were going to use kind of bulk spam, I would do it to citations, but I wouldn't want to do it to branded assets. You see what I'm saying? Like, you could take all your citations and spam the shit out of them. And that can actually help them to get indexed and that kind of stuff too. But when it comes to the branded assets, so specifically tier 1 branded assets, meaning like the branded blogger, G site, things like that, I don't like to touch any of that stuff with bulk spam links anymore. Haven't for years, really. Focus in on topical links or relevant links, either topical or geographically relevant links, to all of your branded assets, right? You can have like a Google stack, that's different, right? Again, former JV partner, Rob Beal, who was co-owner and co-developer of Content Maxima, he coined the term SEO shield, which was drive stacks, and it was other components too, but it was a drive stack was a major component of the SEO shield. The SEO shield was because you shield your site with all these assets that you can do all your kind of aggressive link building to, and it shields the site, hence the name SEO shield. So drive stack, yeah. Citations, yes. But a lot of the specifically branded assets, no. I mean, you can, but I don't recommend it. Okay. Why would you want to dirty up the brand with spammy, shitty links? That's what I look at. That's the way I look at it. Okay. Okay. What's up, Nigel? And then Brian says, NAP for ranking. If a web page also has a different lead tracking phone number, does Google consider that bad? The NAP is there to get ranked, but the other number is for tracking calls for leads. No, look, if you have a dedicated tracking number, then what I would recommend you do is just make sure that that number is added as an additional phone number in the Google Business Profile. You understand, Google Business Profile allows you to add other numbers, but it only allows one to be displayed. It's the primary number is the display number, but you can add, I don't know if you can add as many as you want, but you can add other numbers as additional phone numbers. So like if you're just using a call tracking number that's a forwarding number instead of a dynamically generated phone number, like with Google Ads, call tracking and things like that, then you can just take whatever phone number and add it as an additional phone number to the GBP, and Google will know that that phone number is associated with that Google Business Profile. Now, the citation trackers aren't going to know that, so they're going to mark it as a discrepancy. And so it'll show as a citation error or NAP discrepancy. But that's not the case. If the phone number is associated with the GBP, as long as Google's aware of it, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's not a discrepancy. Now, if it's a dynamically generated number that changes, however often it changes or whenever somebody visits the page, you can't control that. As far as I know, there's no way to resolve that. But you shouldn't. I mean, that's one of those kind of edge cases, if that makes sense. The vast majority of the times, a tracking number or a call tracking number is going to be a forwarding number that is static. It basically is going to remain the same. So just add the primary number and the tracking number into the GBP, and they're all associated with the GBP. It's no longer an issue. Okay. Last question is, or comments from Meat Motor. That's a good name. That tool is the bomb. Ed and Rob did a fantastic job on it. Yes, sir. I 100% agree. I'm really impressed with this tool, guys. I'm not kidding. It's one of my favorite tools right now. Brian says, thanks. Did not know Google allows extra phone numbers, so call tracking can be on site without a problem. Yes, sir. Go into your Google Business Profile Manager, go to the phone section, the phone number section, click edit, and you'll see you can click plus for adding an additional phone number. So just add those in and boom, any of the tracking numbers used for a particular campaign, add those in, you're good to go. It's no longer an NAP discrepancies. So thanks, guys. Appreciate you all for sticking around. Adam, thanks.